I'm actually pretty surprised by how long Biden's honeymoon has lasted thus far. If going in, especially after the Georgia Senate runoffs, if going in, I think some of the after that, if everyone expected that the next coronavirus bill wouldn't be passed until March, which to be fair was put out there shortly after the election, but ahead of the election, I don't think was necessarily a well-known fact. I think people would be not so forgiving with the Biden administration and with the Democratic Congress, or the democratically controlled Congress, I should say. I think that this is a little bit of a surprise. Is helping the Biden administration, that people didn't see this coming. But the next 2 weeks are crucial. It's make or break. If this relief bill isn't passed, with unemployment benefits set to run out in less than 2 weeks, the Biden administration has a lot to lose on the line. So far, March has been ticking ever so slightly in their favor. President Biden did announce that coronavirus vaccines will be going out to the American population 2 months ahead of schedule, which is pretty big news. He's taken some wins, he's taken some losses. Some of that is more inside baseball in DC than something like vaccinations would be, affects every single person in the country. So for the most part, I think the administration is correctly focusing on this COVID relief bill. Losing out on the minimum wage fight is definitely not a good look, but it's something that's must be tackled, because the larger institutional constraints in the Senate and in Congress that are going to hold back the Biden agenda don't seem to have been met thus far with any kind of real vigor and a commitment to change in any real way. And so you see other figures in the Democratic Party and in the Senate, like Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts, and Bernie Sanders is an independent, but is in the Senate nevertheless, out of Vermont, pushing for kind of like these more substantial changes to enact Biden's agenda. So far, it doesn't seem like the White House is like picking up that mantle and running with it. And the little bit of pressure they did try to apply to the moderates in the Senate, Joe Manchin, namely in West Virginia, when I think Vice President Kamala Harris went down to West Virginia. The pushback that came back was so ferocious from Manchin and so swift. I think that kind of scared the Biden team back a little bit. And so we have, we're in this place where the minimum wage will not be raised. $1,400 checks are still on the table, but unemployment at $400 may not be there because of Joe Manchin, and maybe a fight to make it lower. And so all of these little fights, I think, are indicative of this larger fight of having to get 50 senators on your side being a near impossible mission because of the institutional failures in the Senate.
I think what we're seeing with the data, if we want to start there with the opinion poll, is that it comports with what the voting electorate has been talking about and why he was favored in the Democratic primary for so long, which is really that I think this is less an approval of Joe Biden than a disapproval of Donald Trump. I think people are still suffering from PTSD, post-Trump stress disorder, and Donald Trump didn't make that any easier for himself by egging on both these protests to stop the vote or start the vote. It's hard to tell exactly where the far right fell along those lines. They were kind of saying both at the same time. So you've had this sort of chaos since Donald Trump lost the election in November up until January. And we're going on with Senate hearings, congressional hearings, and examinations and media analysis of the riot at the Capitol, which then led to another impeachment proceeding. And so I think people are still suffering from that. So it's hard to say if we can make any broad conclusions about how Americans necessarily feel about Joe Biden, because I still think this is a reflection of how they feel about Donald Trump and the attitude that we just needed to get him out of office, at least based on some Democrats and more centrist Republicans. As far as how Joe Biden is himself performing, I think that it is mixed. I do think that there is a contingency of working class people, of people of color, of progressives and leftists who are obviously, as Sophia mentioned, who are dissatisfied with the way that things are going. I was in Georgia during the Senate campaign, and it's really interesting to see how a lot of centrist Democrats railed on about communication when it came to defunding police. And well, if you have to explain it, then you lost the battle. When it seems like we lost the battle on talking about COVID relief. So are we talking about $2,000 checks, or are we talking about $1,400 checks? And so they have to do the math and explain the math and discuss their evidence as to what exactly they mean when they say that everyone's getting a $2,000 relief check. So some of those economic concerns have been put a little bit by the wayside, I think, because people are still breathing a sigh of relief that we no longer have Donald Trump, that, when it comes to immigration, these detention centers look better. I think some people feel better about that. And I think a lot of this is based on kind of emotional reactions and gut checks. Do I feel more relief that we do not have somebody like Donald Trump, who is promoting violence, promoting chaos in the White House and in the federal government and embarrassing America? And I think people feel a lot better about that. But a lot of the upheaval that led to the protests over the past summer when it came to criminal justice, Joe Biden has been pretty adamant about not really addressing that. He said he met with civil rights activists who are kind of in the more mainstream establishment circles of civil rights activism and said that I can't make this my priority. So I do think that is a disappointment. And the months to come will bear out whether that impacts the way that he's been performing on these opinion polls.